riding down Highway 61. Sides of the roads all lined with fields, nothing but sunset in the windshield. Feel it as soon as I ride into town. This is where I go to slow down. Miles and miles of soybeans and corn. I'm in the place where the blues was born. About a mile from the big muddy river, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away from being out in the sun all day. No matter where in the world I go, I'll always find home on the banks of that oxbow.
What's up, guys? Brad Chappell here, back with the Crappie Connection at the Crappie Expo 2021 in Shreveport, Louisiana. Got my buddy Todd at the end here.
Oh, yeah. Man, I'm excited to hear about this. And a lot of people know that up until 4 or 5 years ago, I never used live bait. I didn't believe in it. And now with all of our technology, live scope and this and that, when I see fish, now I want to catch them without wasting a lot of gas.
Right.
And so I actually carry bait every day now. So I'm really interested for this to talk.
These guys are from Anderson Minnow Farm, and they're one of our sponsors. But the more I've talked to these guys, that it's very intriguing, and I think everybody listening and watching will learn a lot today. Kind of kick back and let's hear some history about you guys.
History of our farm. I'm fourth generation. We've been in business 72 years. We're in Lone Oak, Arkansas, just right in the center of the state. And we've been doing the same thing for 72 years.
Right.
We've been raising live shiners, live goldfish, live fatheads, live rosy reds, along with many other species over the decades. But been doing it a long time. We were the first in the business. My granddad and great granddad were the first to domestically raise bait fish. Before that, it was all caught wild, which is what they were doing when they started raising them domestically. And then there's still a pretty good portion of the bait sold in the United States that is still wild caught bait. But it's just regulations are making it tougher and tougher for people to catch it wild. States don't want those fish moved over the borders. There's no way to discriminate when you're catching wild bait. You're going to catch everything that size: a bass, a crappie, a minnow, a catfish, any species of bait fish. So, the nets don't discriminate. So,
right.
So you see more and more as people are getting more in tune with what they're using for bait, what they're carrying from body of water to body of water, what they're carrying across state lines. It's people are much more aware now of what they're doing, and the U.S. government, from APHIS and USDA and all, they're paying much closer attention to that too.
Right.
And even starting to hit some people with the Lacey Act, which is kind of wild, but just trying to keep invasive species from crossing state lines and spreading body water, trying to keep any type of VHS, SVC, all these diseases and parasites that are moving just so quickly across the U.S. You see all these ads now about clean your boat, drain your live well,
right.
pull your plug. Zebra mussels are huge, especially out west where you've got impoundments and hydroelectric dams and all. They're just wreaking havoc. And so one thing we're proud of as a farm and also as a state, we've got a inspection that we've been doing for almost 20 years now. It all started voluntarily. Best management practices of how we raise our fish, how we use water on the farm, all the way to USDA and APHIS certifying our fish, testing twice a year, which is once, we're only supposed to do it once in most states to ship into those states, but we ship twice a year. We have the Arkansas State Plant Board come and do site inspections twice a year. So they're looking for any sign of diseases, any sign of invasive species, plants, invasive plants, aquatic nuisance species. So they're looking for that twice a year. USDA APHIS is certifying this in an APHIS certified lab, taking hundreds of our fish at a time and checking for diseases. And so they're writing all these certifications, and that allows us to ship in about 47 of the 50 states. There are a couple of states that just do not want live bait coming in.
Right.
But there are some states that over the years have looked to outlaw live bait, but then they've come to Arkansas and looked at our strict programs and said, okay, we're going to allow Arkansas bait in because we are testing for anything and everything we're looking for. So that's one thing we hang our hat on. We're real proud of. Arkansas Safe Bait, you can go to that website and look at the farms that are participating in the program. We've got shows on FLW Network that promote Arkansas farm-raised bait. And so, we're looking out for the environment as much or more than anybody else.
Absolutely. The
last thing y'all want to do is hurt the body of water you're fishing in, or get a ticket for moving something from body of water to body of water. Well, if you're buying fish from Anderson Minnow Farms, they're stamp certified. We can send them along with a certification, what all they're tested for. So that kind of gives everybody a little more peace of mind. But like I say, we've been doing that for 19 or 20 years now, and never come up with anything that they're looking for. Where wild bait, there are no guarantees.
Right. No telling what you're really getting.
So, just always be careful. Ask where your bait's coming from. Ask your bait shop, hey, where's this coming from? And if they don't know, tell them to find out. We service 44, 45 states right now. We sell, the bulk of our fish is still wholesale. We may be sending out a tractor trailer truck, or you might be coming in your tractor trailer truck picking up 2,000 to 5,000 pounds, taking them back, distributing those to jobbers. They go to bait shops, and then you go to the bait shop and pick up your minnow. But one thing we've been doing for about 15 years now, and it's really ramped up the last few years, is we ship overnight FedEx. So our fish that come out of our pond to our shed, to our grading and sorting facility, those fish go directly into a system, and a day or two later are shipped out overnight FedEx. So they're coming straight to your door within 24 hours. You know exactly what you're getting. The grade's very good. The health is very good. I don't want to knock on any of our bait shops.
Yeah.
We've made it up till this point, and we still rely on them, always will. But you never know how many times a fish has been handled before it gets to the bait shop. All the different water it's been through, all the different trucks it's been through. And all of that degrades the life of a bait fish, no doubt. There are some that do it better than others. But the upside of the air freight system is the lack of retail shops around the country now, the route drivers that aren't running routes because of expense, trucks and fuel and time and help labor. So all that's getting very hard. So this air freight system and overnight delivery, if you've got a backyard pond you want to feed your bass and crappie, if you got a retail bait shop, or if you just got a tank in your garage and you fish a lot and you want to buy direct, we can set you up with aeration, any water treatment chemicals you need, nets, bags, just anything you can think of. We've also got that in our retail store.
I know we've talked about this before, and that's one of the things that really struck me is whenever I go to a body of water and I'm not sure what's there. And of course, there's different applications now that you can research and find that out, but I know I've experienced it before when I would travel and show up and all the bait's sold out. So you're like, man, and what day does a minute guy come back around? They say, well, he comes back Tuesday. Well, I'm there on Friday. So a program like this, especially if you're traveling, man, I think it's just so wonderful.
Well, and a lot of the bait shops want to handle a certain size fish, want to handle certain species of fish, even though we've got a variety. Anytime I go to one of our customers, one of our bait shops, it never fails. Somebody says, well, can you not grow these any bigger? And I look at the bait shop owner, I'm like, yeah, we can. It's just that he wants to order a certain size, or he may just have one tank. He may not can hold more sizes.
Right.
So that's the other upside. We can give you the species and the size you want instantly. and you can keep them in your garage if that's where you choose. And if you want to take a pound with you fishing today and you only use a half pound, bring that other pound back, put it back in your tank. And you don't have to release those in the lake, which we never recommend. Always be careful what you're releasing, or you don't have to throw them in the trash.
Yeah, saving money.
Yeah, saving money.
So we were talking about care just a little bit ago. Explain to us what most of us do wrong once we're on the water with bait.
Biggest thing is trying to hold too many fish per volume of water. You know, the worst thing in the world for the bait industry was the 1 gallon styrofoam bucket, because everybody wanted to put a half pound of fish in it with no aeration, and they leave the retail store and get to the lake and they're all belly up.
Right.
You know, so that's the worst thing. Temperature shock is another bad thing. You know, one of the greatest things I've seen for our industry is a 5 gallon bucket with a lid and a bubble aerator on it. Just, you know, D-cell battery. Or now these coolers that they've come out with that have aeration on the side.
Right.
You can keep that water cool. Those fish aren't sitting there baking in the water in the sun on the deck of your boat. You know, that prolongs the life of them greatly. You know, I've always tell people, if you're going to use your bait well on your boat and use lake water, that's fine, that's great. But if that lake water, if that surface water is 90 degrees in the summertime, you know, those fish are going to struggle for oxygen, because that water, 90 degree water won't hold half as much oxygen as 70 degree water will. And every 10 degrees you warm that fish up, his metabolism doubles. So he's using more oxygen. He's letting off more waste, more ammonia, and more carbon dioxide. So, you know, so all those things when it comes to bait care and handling, from the bait shop just to the boat, you know, those are 2 big improvements. Either a little cooler that you can throw a frozen bottle, a water bottle in and cool it off a little bit slowly, or cool off your live well, or just the aeration. I know a lot of crappie fishermen now are using compressed oxygen, little bottles and little stones. That's wonderful. I love it. I'd much rather see that than just water streaming in from a pump, because the only way to get oxygen transferred into that water when you're doing that is the air it collects traveling. The oxygen it collects traveling through the air for that a few inches and then splattering down in. It's just very little oxygen being added to that water. You're doing more if you just flush it through there than if you just recirculate.
But somebody can look on your website and find everything to set that up right now?
Yes, we sell any type of aeration you can think of, the hoses, the stones, which, you know, of course, like everything, a lot of that stuff's hard to get right now, so we may be out of some things. Any chemical to take chlorine out, take ammonia out, you know, all that type of stuff, we've got it.
And that website's minnowsplus.com.
Right.
Minnowsplus.com.
Yeah. And Matt, he's in charge of Minnows Plus, and he's doing a wonderful job, and he's selling stuff as fast as we can get it in.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, I hate to think most of it's sitting out there on container ships right now, but it just is what it is.
Container ship right now, absolutely.
It just is what it is. But you know, when it comes to keeping a tank at home, you know, the first question we get, how long can I keep them alive? Well, if you've got an adequate volume of water, and you've got the chemicals removed from that water that may harm your fish, which is the chlorines and chloramines mainly, if you've got that, and then you've got adequate oxygen for that volume of water, you know, just bubbles going through the water is not always sufficient. You know, we get lots of calls where people went and bought an aquarium at Walmart or pet store, and it says the aeration that comes with it, which is more or less just a waterfall, is good for 20-gallon aquarium. Well, yeah, but that's meant to have 2 or 3 fish in it. Now, that's not meant for a pound or 2 or 3 or 4 pounds. And they send us a picture and all fish are belly up, and they say, well, this aeration's good for 20 gallons. Well, it's not good for 4 pounds. You know, there's a huge difference. And the only way to tell if it's adequate is with an oxygen meter, which are very expensive. We use them on the farm, but I don't expect anybody else to have one. You know, so really, you just kind of have to take our word for it. You know, we might recommend a $250 agitator, and you might not want to spend that, and I completely understand. But after you kill a bunch of fish, you might think, well, okay, maybe we should have done that.
And no galvanized tanks either.
Yeah,
we
use
get that a lot.
Plastic tank. Galvanized tanks, those chemicals that galvanize that can leach into the water and over time kill fish. You know, water changes. You know, that's all. You got to play with your system, but change that water. If those fish are up top, the ammonia is probably getting them more than lack of oxygen. They act the same, but it's burning their gills. Just like you or I sitting in a smoke-filled room, eventually our lungs are going to start burning. We're going to start degrading. That's what ammonia does to their gills. Well, you can either change part of the water out and freshen it up. You can add a chemical that masks it, like no ammonia, but it only buys you some time. Or you can use, like you saw at our booth, an agitator, which is not a bubble style.
Right.
This sits on top of the water. It spins. They've been around for decades. It spins and not only adds oxygen to the water, but it whips the ammonia and the carbon dioxide out.
I did not know that.
So, when you see a bait tank and there's foam on the sides, that's excess ammonia trying to get out. Well, this speeds that process up. I like to use the analogy of it's like taking egg whites in a beater and whipping it into meringue. It's the same thing. Those are proteins coming out of those egg whites. Same thing with the water and the agitator. So if you're going to start from scratch and do one thing and one thing only that I ask you to do, please use an agitator versus the bubble aerator. The bubble aerators work, but they don't add near the oxygen, and they leave all that ammonia and carbon dioxide in that water for you to deal with yourself.
I did
one way or
not.
another.
That's something that I always thought, well, I can plug up a aerator and just use it instead of an agitator.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, too, is a lot of people are trying to cool their water. They're going through the extra step to cool their water, keep their fish happy. Well, and then you're taking a bubble aerator pumping
hot air,
X degree air right into your water and fighting your chiller. Where the agitator, sure, there's whipping action on top and there's that surface connection there with outside air, but it's not pumping that air into the water and rising it through bubbles, and so it's just another negative to that system.
Talk about a filter. We get that a lot of times. Somebody's going to hear this and say, well, I have a filter. I have a very expensive filter, and that's not something we...
I wish everybody would unplug their filters. Filters are made for a steady load across X amount of time. They're made for an aquarium with X amount of fish producing X amount of waste and ammonia, and that filter will build up to it and maintain it. Well, in a bait scenario, if you've got a tank in your garage, or if you're a retailer and you've got a tank full of fish, you're inevitably going to go from very low volumes or zero to the day the bait man runs, and you're going to have 5, 10, 20 pounds in there. Well, if you've got a filter set up to run 20 pounds of fish in a volume of water, and you've got zero fish in there, all the bacteria in that filter that eat the ammonia and help clean and filter that water, they die. So then all of a sudden you've got a filter with very little bacteria in it to work for you, and you throw 10 pounds of fish in there.
You're chasing your tail.
A day or two later, they're up on top because the ammonia's off the charts. Well, and then, let's say you give it time and build it up and it's doing good, and you selling your bait or using your bait and it's back down to nothing. So it's a constant roller coaster, but it's never on the same rail.
Right.
So I tell people,
with the agitator, you don't have to worry about all that.
Very little, that or routine water changes, which you need to do anyway. But I hate it when shops call or individuals call and they've got this $200 or $300 filter system and their fish are dying, and they're like, well, I've got a filter system. I don't know why they're dying. Well, that's why they're dying. They've been in there for 5 days. Your filter system is working little or none, and they're dying. Just unplug your filter system, change your water, or get an agitator, or do both.
What all do you guys actually have available for somebody to purchase? If I'm wanting to say, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and invest in setting me up a system, what would you recommend for avid fishermen to have as far as gallon wise, and what could they hold? And
easiest thing to do, go to your Tractor Supply or your farm store and get a Rubbermaid tank, 100-gallon tank. For average Joe that's not doing a whole lot of retail business through it, a 100-gallon tank is going to do you just fine, because why hold 20 pounds in it when you can get fish twice a week from us?
Right.
Don't get a month's worth at a time. Get half a week's worth or a week's worth. But get you a 100-gallon Rubbermaid tank. If you can, please buy the agitator, the $240 or $50 agitator that sits on top of the water and runs 24/7, and not only puts oxygen in but pulls the ammonia and carbon dioxide out. if you're not going to go that route and you want to go a blower bubble style, you're going to spend almost as much money. You might be a little quieter, but inevitably you're not going to hold as many fish as long in that tank of water. But we've got a chart we can send to you that shows how many pounds of fish you can hold in X gallons of water at X temperature. And if you go by that pretty close, and decide how many pounds you want to hold at a time, how much water you need, and then adequate, that's the key word, adequate oxygen. That's what you would need from us. So if you call us, say I'm start from scratch, gonna put this in my garage or under my deck in the shade or something like that, we're gonna recommend the aerator style. We're gonna recommend the chemicals to treat your city water that pull all the chemicals out to keep those fish healthy. We're gonna recommend some nets. We're gonna recommend what else? Really, that's it.
Yeah, it's really. It's really not as complicated.
It's not
from a material standpoint as you think.
What about? And I know somebody's thinking it. What about feeding them? Do they need to feed them?
Feeding them. If they're just like us, you and I, we could make.
I eat every day.
But I know I can make it a while off no food. Now I have built up my reserves. I assure you. Well, these fish are the same. They're going to be just fine a week or two with no food.
Okay.
Now, if you want to feed them, all you're going to do is sour your water a little bit. It's going to mean more water changes. But if you're wanting to keep them a month, which really there's no reason why you should have to if you're using enough of them and can get them twice a week from us. Let's say you want to keep them a month. Well, week 3, week 4, we sell the fish food that we raise these fish on. It's formulated for them.
I got you.
So it is, it's what they need. We sell that in small quantities. Feed them enough that if they eat it in the first 5 minutes, they're good. If it's still floating, cut back on it.
Yeah. Y'all need to actively feed. So if they're eating it, great, but you can't just throw it in there and let it sit and then all settle to the bottom, and then we have issues that we're talking about.
It's just going to trash your water.
Yeah, I would think so. Like I said, I had an aquarium for years in my house, and most people, when they want to come to your house, they want to feed your minnow. Feed your fish in the fish tank, and you always have to be really careful about overfeeding them. But I know somebody was asking that in their mind anyway.
Well, we get that question all the time, and I tell them if you're going to be out of fish in the next week or two, don't feed them, just for lots of reasons. But if you're wanting to keep them for an extended period, then we can sell that to you.
What's probably the toughest minnow to kill?
They're all. That's a loaded question. Now, I will say what we raise. We've actually got a patented trademark product that about 18 years ago, my dad and I were offshore fishing, and we spent the first hour fishing for our bait, the little trigger fish, all that stuff, and he and I thought, well, we've got to be with all that our capabilities, we've got to be able to come up with something for the saltwater market. Well, we came back, and through about 2 to 3 years, multiple generations of trial and error, we took a product. I've got to say, we did not change it genetically at all. It is not altered. It is what it is genetically. We selectively bred this fish that we call the black salty, trademarked, and the patented process of making it saltwater tolerant. So it will live. It's a freshwater fish. You keep it in fresh water. When you put it in full strength salt water, it'll live about an hour. But the funny thing is, you pull it out of full strength salt water, put it back in fresh water, it revives. But through that process, we made one of the toughest products out there. The people that were offshore fishing with this brought them back and started catfishing, striper fishing, largemouth bass, bed fishing with them. It's very similar looking to a carp, and you put that next to largemouth bass bed, and that big female is not going to put up with it. She's going to hit it. They are very, very tough striper bait. You can drag them around the lake all day long, take them off the hook, put them back in your live well. Use them the next day if you didn't hit a vital organ with that hook. That, to me, we've heard more stories of fish like that surviving. You have a fish camp and you leave it for 2 or 3 months when in off season, come back and there's still one swimming around in an ice chest from rainwater.
I mean,
Yeah.
You know, I actually shipped some overnight FedEx with no water in the box, just a wet sponge, and they were fine the next day. So
They're amazing little fish.
when it comes to tough, that is by far my answer. Now, when it goes
like an MMA fighter there. He'd get through anything.
right, but when it comes to shiners and fatheads, a lot of it's situational. You know, how are you using it? What time of year is it? But I'd say tough wise, they're neck and neck. The shiner and the fathead. You know, a pink toughie is just a albino black fathead. It's, you know, we pull, if we get our brood stock together and see a black one or two in there, you know, we're going to pull that out before we spawn them, because just like anything else, they'll revert back to black if you give them enough generations. But that's a pink toughie is nothing but a black fathead.
That's like a rosy red, right?
It's a rosy red.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I.
Rosy red. Lots of different
My neck
names
of the
for them.
woods.
Yeah.
Have you ever taken 2 or 3 different types of bait that y'all breed and see which one fish prefer in a tank setting?
If I could do that, now that in a tank setting, that's, I guess, doable. But if I could tell you what a fish prefer, then I'd be way ahead. But not that everybody believe me. But no, we've never done that. You know, quite honestly, when you're dealing with fish that are completely native to most areas in the country, there are fatheads and shiners in most of the bodies of water in this country, mixed. It's really hard to say what a fish prefers. Generally, a shiner will occupy a different part of the lake than the fathead, not always. In the spring, they're all coming to the shallows to spawn. You know, so, and the fatheads are generally easier to pick off for a fish, because the males are going to sit there and guard the nest and fan the eggs. Shiners come through, lay eggs, fertilize eggs, and they're back out schooling. Fatheads, they lay it, female lays in the nest, male fertilizes, and he hangs there, and then he's picked off by a frog, a snake, a turtle, a bird, a fish. He's picked off. He's not going to make spawning season. You know, so.
He's not the smart guy.
Right. You know, so that's a really hard question to answer. You know, those, like I say, it depends on what time of year, where they are typically hanging around in that body of water as to probably which fish that game fish prefers. You know, and honestly, color-wise, fish see more shades than they do color.
Right.
You know, colors are just because we love marketing. You know, so a shiner or a goldfish or fathead or a pink minnow, they're going to give off a different shade, a different hue. Light's going to hit them, and you know, at different depths. And you know, to me, that may trigger a strike more than the actual fish itself. You know, I've got a tank over there with fatheads and shiners together in it, and I can look in there and tell which one's which, but most fishermen can't. But yet they say, "Oh, I got to have a fathead because that's all crappie will bite on right now." Well,
I don't know if I know the difference.
they're very, very similar. You know, but it could be that I'm not going to say the shape of that fish caused a strike, but it could be just the way the light hit, you know, the scales on it. You know, fathead's more of a slick fish. It has very, very, very fine, small scales. Shiner has larger scales that are more, that are probably going to reflect more. So I think that has much more to do with it than saying a crappie prefers one or the other, because I don't really think they care.
I know one time when I fished a lot of tournaments with spider rig, we use live bait a lot, but we would pump a lot of oxygen in them, and literally when we would open up a cooler, because that's what I would use at the time with, you know, industrial grade oxygen, but literally as soon as you popped open that lid, these fish would be I don't know, they're almost like crack on them or something.
Well,
I mean, they go crazy.
The oxygen does burn them.
Is that what's
burns
making
their
them doing
gills?
it?
So high oxygen, that fish.
Yeah.
They were going crazy. I mean, you put them on a hook and it's like, I mean,
They're just
they're
freaking
going
out for a little
wild.
while, yeah. But over oxygenating them is.
I thought they were happy.
well,
I mean, I really did. I was like, man, I got some happy minnows in here. You know?
It's just affecting their gills.
Oh, really?
So it's you know, not as much in a negative way as oxygen starving them, but it is affecting them. You know,
literally a big
if you've been in the hospital and been on oxygen and have too much, when that raw oxygen's going up your nose through that tube, it burns your nose. You know, so very similar with the fish.
I honestly thought they were really happy. I was like, these guys they're ready to go fishing. I mean, they're jumping out ready to roll.
Yeah.
So they were kind of like that girl in the convenience store last night, just trying to bite her own ear off.
Yeah, it was quite interesting there too. But no, man, I have learned a good bit today, and I can't wait to do some more. I would like to go up there and film and see some of your process, because I mean that's just so intriguing to me.
Well, it's very interesting, and not a lot's changed over the years, aside from our hatchery system. You know, where we used to do it all wild. We had our ponds with broodstock. We had our mats that we would put out in the broodstock ponds. They would lay eggs, fertilize the eggs, and we used to just take those directly to what we called a nursery pond, where they'd hatch out, and then we'd spread throughout the year from those ponds. Well, I graduated college in '98. My first job, Dad said, okay, you're going to build a hatchery, because we needed to expand. We needed more broodstock, more fry, more eggs, and it really wasn't feasible to buy more land, more ponds, hire more people. It was just tougher. We knew through research at universities, a lot of fish are hatched in a hatchery. It was possible for shiners. It just never been done outside of a university system. So we started building a hatchery, and that was my first job for the first 2 or 3 years, was just trial and error how to make this work. And then once we kind of got it to work, got it to where it was kind of a seamless system, it just revolutionized what we could do. You know, before when we were doing it the old way, we realized after we built the hatchery and we knew our survival, that we were getting about 2% survival moving eggs from one pond to another.
Wow.
Just because, you know, the way we were doing it, more or less.
Right.
It had nothing to do with Mother Nature, it's just how we were doing it. Well, once we built the hatchery and could count the eggs and count the fry, we realized, well, we were getting 2% the old way, now we're getting about 98% through the hatchery.
Good gracious.
So instead
That's a big swing.
So instead of needing to up to 400 acres of broodstock, we could cut it back to 100. You know, and we could do all this. We're hatching 1.3 billion with a B shiners in a 3 to 4 week period through our hatchery.
It's unbelievable.
That is unbelievable.
It is.
And then we're also hatching our fatheads and our goldfish and our black salties all through that hatchery system. You know, so it really revolutionized the way we're doing it, made it much more efficient, but it also helped us raise more fish, because what we used to have tied up with more broodstock and more nursery ponds could convert those to production ponds. You know, and the difference there is, I'll try to make it quick, I don't want to bore everybody, but you know, we'll take a nursery pond, we'll stock it at 2 million head per acre out of the hatchery, and then throughout the year, as we work down a production pond and thin it down, we'll take young fish out of that nursery pond and spread them into production ponds. So there's a constant cycle. Our ponds are never empty. If they are, we're losing money. So we're constantly have a cycle of fish going all the time. You know, and like I say, the hatchery runs for a month out of the year, so I've got to produce enough fish of enough species to get me through the next 12 to 14 months, and it's got my crop has to tie in. This year's crop has to tie in with last year's crop.
You're a minnow farmer.
Yeah.
So how long does it take to get from
an
egg to whatever?
Great question.
1.5 to 2 inch shiner
Right.
that you sell?
Of the small, say the 1.25 inch shiner, which is on our low end, a size 4 shiner, we can get that in about 45 days if we want to.
Oh, wow.
And we do that through density and feed. So we can stock them at a lower density and then push feed to them. And as long as temperatures are correct, in 45 days I can have that ready for market. But if we need, if we need to slow that down, let's say last year's crop we've still got quite a few left, and I want to slow down this year's crop, then I just stock them at a little higher density and give them a little less food, and their growth rate's going to slow down. But I've got that fish that's born in April, I need them that big in 45 days, but I also need them that big a year from now. So I've got to keep those at a much higher density, and then I've also got to have the right.
Sounds kind of tricky, I'll be honest.
It's a production nightmare, but you get it's with enough acreage and enough ponds. If a pond does outgrow you, or if a pond's a little too slow growing, you've got more that are going to be ready. I'm feeding these ponds every day, so I'm watching these fish eat. I'm watching them grow. If they're not acting right, we need to go find out why. I know which ponds are getting ready for market, which ponds are this size, 1.5 inches, which ponds are 2 inches, which ponds are 3 inches. And then I'm telling my harvest crews which ponds they've got to go to get X amount of fish for today.
I bet you got some happy birds around there.
We raise a lot of birds. It's an absolute nightmare. But,
I can imagine.
you know, when you're raising something that's at the bottom of the food chain, it's a
everybody
battle.
loves you.
It's a battle from snakes, frogs, turtles, crawfish, and every bird you can fathom. Everybody loves you. It's a buffet.
Do you have to put net over your anything to prevent that?
We don't, just simply because the scale of our operation. You know, we're 3,500 acres of water, 334 ponds. So nets would not only inhibit you doing your everyday job, but it's just not possible. You just raise extra that, and then we've got permits. U.S. Fish and Wildlife gives us permits to harass these birds and kill some of them, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to what's on us. You know, today, with all the bird species feeding on us, we've probably got between 3,000 and 5,000 birds on us, and many of those birds are eating a pound a day. Some of the the cormorants, the pelicans, the herons, the cranes. So it just tells you what we lose in a year's time.
Wow.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, like, because, I've got a cabin on the lake, and I watch the herons every day sitting on the pier, and they're like, those things eat a lot of minnows.
They're very efficient. And you can imagine a pond with thousands of pounds in it.
And a lot of fat birds around there.
And they follow our feed trucks around. They watch that feed truck, because those fish are coming to the top to feed, and they're just picking as fast as they can pick. So, there are species that were on the endangered species list that we have brought back single-handedly.
I can imagine.
And
how many acres you say again?
3,500 of water.
Of water.
Yes.
Wow.
That's a big scale.
So we get that a lot from the people that we argue with about bird depredation. They say, well, move them indoors or put a net over them. Well, they can't even grasp what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
I had one woman tell me in a meeting that I shouldn't have put all my ponds so close together. So but they just can't understand. It's not, I don't want to call it ignorance, but it's a bad term, but they just can't fathom what we're talking about.
It's on such a scale.
Yeah.
You really do have to see it.
I mean, that's like the New York City of minnows. I mean, that's jam-packed.
If I was interested in crime, I'm going to a big populated city. I'm not going to live in Lone Oak, Arkansas with 4,000 people if I'm a crime syndicate,
Right.
That's incredible. We got to get down there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I look forward to that.
Well, I highly recommend coming in the
Jamie,
spring.
I was like, man, I got to come check it out.
Yeah.
I mean,
the hatchery is definitely something you'll need to see. To see a tube full of 4 million fish eggs, it literally just shuts your mind down. Yeah.
Well, all right. I get ready to order some where I need to go.
Okay, you're going to go to, if you're ordering fish, you're going to AndersonMinnows.com.
Okay.
And if you're ordering anything else, the pumps, the hoses, the tanks, anything, you're going to go to minnowsplus.com.
Man, awesome. Can't thank you guys enough.
Call us. Numbers on the website. Call us. We can do the same thing over the phone you can on the website. Our fish are on Amazon and eBay. If you have any questions about a tank setup, please call us.
I'll tell you another thing, too, that we'll tell the viewers and listeners is comment on this right now.
Yes.
Say, hey, this is my scenario.
Yeah.
We'll get in touch with you guys. And, we want to help people keep bait and fish with them.
Well, I tell people all the time, text us a picture of your setup or a short video or email it to us. Let us look at it. If something jumps out at us, let us change it real quick. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over. Last thing I want is everybody killing minnows constantly and getting a bad rap.
And you will talk to somebody. That's one of the amazing things that I like too, is you call us, you're going to talk to someone, and we will give you the answer that you need.
That's awesome.
Real often you're going to talk to me. That's what I'm there for. I've seen it all, and I can help you. We'll make it work.
Absolutely.
Well, enjoyed it, guys.
Yeah,
I learned a
appreciate
lot this deal. And
Well, I appreciate y'all having us on. We've been looking forward to it.
I want to come down there. I do.
Glad we could be a part of sponsoring the show.
That'll be awesome to follow this up with going there and showing how large of scale it is.
We did do a video today that I want everybody to see how the minnows actually arrive when
Right.
you order them.
Right.
And, Jamie's going to go through some of the care questions, even on that little video that we did.
Yeah.
So make sure you guys, if you're listening to that, watch it, and you'll see what you'll be able to get at your house.
Yeah,
Or you can't.
watch y'all's video. We've got a YouTube video. There's an instruction sheet in that box. Please follow it. Please follow it.
Follow it to the letter.
And these are guaranteed alive. If you got any issues, snap a picture, shoot it to us. We're going to send you another box.
Can't beat that, fellas.
Yep.
All right, until next time, like, subscribe, and comment. We need some comments. Give it to us. Until
All
next
right.
time.
Challenge us with some questions.
Yeah, be
Please.
sure in the comments. Like I say, we want to hear y'all's stories and questions about
Your success stories, even. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to hear it.
Absolutely. Well, there's a time and place for every bait out there, but I assure you, minnows work into it at some point, and give them a shot.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank y'all.
Brad Chapel,
Todd Huckabee.
holla.
About a mile from the big muddy river, a place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my way